very much. And if I could actually request only the panelists keep their video on, just so that we know who's speaking when they speak. And then after they're done speaking, we can certainly pull all of our faces back on. Welcome to that. I got to share. That would be helpful. There we go. Does it work? Can you all see what I see? It says women in architecture.
Yes, we see it.
Perfect. So, welcome to our first Women in Architecture monthly from AIA Florida. And today's topic is called Stories of Success from the 1%. And the percentage number is up for debate and discussion, but we're going to stick to 1% for the moment. And let's see if I click here, will it work? There we go. So before we get started, I want to talk about our upcoming events. March 29th is a Women's History Month, and we're doing our second annual, what I call 16 by 6 by 2, which means there's a woman representing each of our components in Florida, plus the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, hopefully. And obviously now that makes 15. And this year we said Beverly as our current president. We have many women presidents in the state. She also gets to speak, and she just found out about it. So in April, we'll have our monthly. Our committee hasn't come up with, we have a long list, but we don't have exact what it is, May. And then shameless plug for AIA Miami. We are having our Florida AIA Miami Women Leadership Summit in Coral Gables, and here's save the date. It'll be a 2.5 day or a day and a half, however you want to call it, Friday, Saturday, and a tour on Sunday. So we hope to see you there. We'll be sending you information out as soon as we go. So back to why we're all here. Women in Architecture, Stories of Success from the 1%. So this is from NCARB, and this is their latest NCARB by the numbers, and it shows that we have 24.9% number of women in the country as registered architects, of which 18.9% are white, 1.7 is female, and of course this all depends on where you put the check marks, and if they don't give you an option for more than one check mark, we're going to assume they only give you one. 2.6% are Asian background. There's an other group, which is 1.2, and African American or Black is 0.5%. Originally, this was called Stories of the 0.4% until we looked up that current number, and we're up 2.5%. Being February, which is Black History Month, we wanted to highlight several women in our state that have wonderful stories of success. And with that, I'm going to introduce you to our moderator, Vanessa Smith-Torres. AIA is a Puerto Rican-born architect based in Miami. She received her bachelor's from Northeastern University and master's of architecture from Tulane. She works at Perkins and Will currently and has done everything from hospitality to education. Since she is very much an advocate of equity, she's past president of South Florida NOMA, member of AIA Miami's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and she is vice president of AIA Miami this year and co-chairs the Women in Architecture. And with that, I pass it to Vanessa to introduce our moderators.
All right, thank you, Lourdes. Thank you for
I'm infamous for cutting people's resumes, so don't be shy.
Oh, no, I will. I'll keep it pithy. So our first panelist is Stacey Bourne, who is a fellow Tulane alum. She's a principal of the Bourne Group, and she focuses on influencing social change through the power of design, and I think that's something that we all can agree on. So in addition to studying at Tulane, she's also studied at Washington University in St. Louis. She was a regional director at AIA National and a chair of the AIA Board Diversity Council, and has served as a chapter president for the Virgin Islands for 5 terms. So thank you, Stacey, for joining us. So Naomi and I do a lot of work together. She is the current president of NOMA South Florida, a co-chair with me of the Women in Architecture Committee, and she works with Lourdes at MC Harry and Associates, where she is the director of K-12 projects. And she has a great story to share today. So thank you, Naomi, for joining us. Rachel Hunter is an architect and project manager for Studio Plus. She's been working in healthcare and and received her Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Miami, and has a lot of great stories about travel and design and the diverse beauty and diversity of architecture around the world. So thank you, Rachel, for joining us today. And Brianna Johnson is a Florida native who I met working through a vlog, a series of Inside Voices Black Thoughts, and she's a really amazing advocate. She's worked with AIA Orlando, with Black Architects in the Making Orlando. She's been in Women in Architecture, the Young Architects Forum, you name it, she's done it, D&I, and she's a co-chair of the AIA Florida Convention for the year 2022. And Priscilla Tavares she's in her last year at FAMU, so congratulations. And she is the president of AIAS at FAMU, originally from Orlando, and she is going to help us raise those numbers by getting licensed as soon as possible after graduation. So thank you, welcome to all of our speakers, and thank you for joining us today. So I think for our speakers, you can go ahead and unmute yourselves and kind of jump into the conversation at any time. So I'm going to kick it off by starting with my story and let y'all also share yours. So as Lourdes said, my name is Vanessa Smith Torres. I am a project architect at Perkins & Will. I studied at Tulane, and I actually got licensed pretty quickly after graduation. And at the time I got licensed, I should say at the time I finished all of my exams, there were 325 licensed Black women architects. So 325. That whopping 0.5% that we've gotten to recently is because just fairly recently, last year, we finally crossed a threshold of 500 Black female architects in the US. So it's been a slow going process, but we're glad to see these numbers slowly trickling up. One of the things growing up, I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and I grew up in a very, very diverse town where I was just a Latina, right? There was no question. No one asked, oh, are you Black? Are you white? What are you mixed with? Any of these questions, I was just Latina, and that was just it. They say ignorance is bliss. I thought the world was like that. So I never really knew or dug too deep into the numbers or the lack of representation, because I was blessed enough to grow up in this very diverse environment. And so once I left that space, I realized how different there were a lot of different spaces that didn't feel comfortable, and I couldn't put my finger on why, and I left them. And later as an adult, I realized why I left them, and it's because I was the only person who looked like me, who talked like me, who was like me in these spaces. And so for me, I think these types of conversations and panels are not really to dwell on the numbers and to discourage, but as I always say, if you can see it, you can be it, and to let everyone know you're not alone in this journey. And so that was a quick version of my story. So Priscilla, I'm gonna turn it over to you and ask what your journey has been like, what brought you to architecture, and what have your experiences been?
So I never really, hello everyone, my name is Priscilla. I never thought of, I've never looked so much at representation before until I actually started going at a HBCU. The goal was just architecture really, and how do I get in and how do I get past all the levels I need to get to become the professional and the license. And so this is the second time I try for the degree. I do have an architectural engineering associates from Pennsylvania, because I'm originally from the Northeast. And now you talking about that, I realized, wow, when I first got that first degree, I was literally the only Hispanic there. And then when I attempted it in Penn State, I remember being told by a guidance counselor, like, well, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be an architect. And I know, I was a Caucasian person, and being from where that town was, it was predominantly white. It was like, we we looked a certain way. Most of the Hispanics worked in factories. And so I never really thought about that. And my journey has been sort of like, this is my goal no matter what. It's in my path, like it's my passion. What intrigued me into architecture was when I was younger. I did live in New York City up until I was 16. So I was part of the whole 9/11, the World Trade Center falling down. I was near that. I experienced that. And my mom signed us up to some architecture firm, which I can't remember now, but they were doing the, the new rebuild. And right when it was to the studs and the concrete levels and columns, we were allowed to like go through that. And I was like, probably, I don't know, 12. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. And I have a construction background, carpentry background. So I just thought I love it, but I don't plan to do this until I'm 60 years old. So then I realized, oh, I can combine art and design and structure in one, and architecture sort of did that. And ever since, it's just been sort of like trying to climb that ladder. Coming to Florida, I had to start over in essence to complete that bachelor's degree. And then unfortunately, HBCUs wasn't something that was shown to me. Like it was like, oh, you have to go to UCF. This is the only option. It does have that stigma, like you're not going to get the education you're supposed to get in a Black school or something like that. And then I realized very quickly that I've never had so many opportunities and doors open to me as I have in this environment. I've never felt so welcomed, so many options of having mentors or people wanting to teach me or seeing that I could be an architect as well. So I think that it's been a learning experience for and exciting in a way. Like I'm right at the end now, finally. And I don't think I would have seen that through had I not had been around others that looked like me. And it really does make a difference. I've never thought about representation, to be honest. I just thought coming from parents that came from a different country, Dominican Republic, I'm aware there's Black in me, but there's always like, where do I fit? Either, if you are aware of it, you aren't Black. And then if if you don't say something, it's like, well, there's Black in you too. So it's very fun to like kind of see how I can start applying that now and be part of that 1%.
Awesome. Thank you, Priscilla. Naomi.
Hi, so I am on my way to USF and then to FAMU. So I are for people here. So my journey was set since I was like 9 years old. I wanted to be in architecture. I used to go through the old Architectural Digest, the ones that actually showed architecture and not just ads, the real ones. I still have them. And that was just something that I really wanted to do. Interesting what Priscilla said, and of course we're going to hear the other stories. I was Black, my mom was white until I came to the United States, right? I mean, of course I knew those things, I'm of color, my mom is, white from Boston, but it was never.
Naomi, we're losing you.
Yeah.
You're back.
Oh boy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay. I was saying that, I didn't realize that my mom was white and I was Black in the United States, because in Jamaica, it wasn't such a big issue, and this idea of race is really something upon in the United States. I didn't realize that architecture had this deficit until maybe in my late.
All right, Naomi, we lost you again. Maybe try turning off for your video and then save on your
What's
bed.
this?
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, this is awful. Go to somebody else.
All right, Stacy.
Okay, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, rather, whichever time zone you're in. Thank you for this opportunity, Vanessa, and it's great to meet everyone from yesterday. My path is a little different. I think I'm the oldest one in the group that's talking today. So I In high school, I decided I wanted to be an architect. My brother told me to take a class. I was in a private school because I like trouble. So my mom put me in private school. And so my brother told me to take a drafting class for an easy A, and the rest was history. And in that drafting class, I was raised by my grandmother. She's from St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. So there's that. And so I designed a house for her in the 10th grade with no steps. I didn't know anything about ADA, but I knew she had a hard time in our house. So I designed her a house. And I lived in North St. Louis at the time, which is a Black community. And I never met an architect, but I designed us a community center because we didn't have a community center. And I thought that we needed this. And I think this is where my passion for social justice really kind of came in. And my college counselor told me when I finally decided what I wanted to be, I was so excited. I said, Ms. Gould, I know what I want to be. I'm going to be an architect. And she said to me, looking dead in my face, and said, Stacy, women don't become architects. Now, if you tell me I can't do something, all you have to do is, if you really want me to do something, tell me I can't. You know, that's like reverse psychology, because I was dead set on becoming an architect. And to her credit, you know, she was like 60 something at the time, and she probably never saw a female architect. She probably didn't even know that they existed. You know, I took it personally, but she probably didn't mean it personally. And so I went to Tulane, and at Tulane, I was the only Black woman in my class. We had two other Black guys, well, one Black guy and two Hispanics. So they counted us all as 4 Black people, you know? So when you're talking about what race meant, I'm like, what? Okay, whatever. And after I graduated, I ended up in the Virgin Islands. It was my only job coming out of college. And they had just had Hurricane Hugo in '89, and I graduated in 1990. And I went to the Virgin Islands to work for an architect who graduated from Tulane University, went to his alma mater to hire. And that's how I got involved in hurricane recovery. And I got my license in '94 when I was 27, which is a completely different examination process. We had to do the 12-hour drawing and all of that and all that. And after I got my license, his wife was ready to go back to France, where she was from. And he asked me to finish several projects that I was working on. And indirectly, I inherited clients from an architecture firm. And that's how my firm started. And a lot of times I look back and I thought to myself, and as I listened to you guys' story, and I worked here and I did this, and I worked here and I did this, and I did healthcare, and I did da, 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 da. That is such a wonderful opportunity, because I feel like I went through the school of hard knocks, you know, like I had to figure out how to run an office. I had to figure out how to do the payroll. I had to figure out how to do the schedule. So everything that you're experiencing now, just soak it up so that when you do your own firm, you have all these resources to kind of draw from. And I heard you guys talking about, I don't remember, combining your passion with architecture. I think that is the key to being successful and to loving architecture for whatever period of time. If it becomes a chore to you, you're not in the right space. If it becomes, if it's not what it was originally for you, you're not in the right space. And space could be, you know, mentally, it could be physically, it could be employment, it could be whatever it is. And so, you know, just finding your niche, I think, is really important. And you talked about also kind of get in where you fit in terms of being Jamaican and Puerto Rican and kind of all these things. And you know, I was sharing yesterday, and I make light of it, and it probably shouldn't make light of it, but there's a lot of times I check a lot of different boxes depending on how I feel that day. So if I'm feeling Jamaican that day for my grandmother, I'm gonna check West Indian. If I'm feeling Panamanian like my mom, who didn't teach me Spanish because her role was to assimilate when she came, I'll check Latina. If I'm feeling like my dad, I'm gonna check African American. If I'm feeling like my great grandmother, I'm gonna check white. I just go what I like. And so that's my story. And I mentor lots of women. I help lots of women. I just love the environment. I love that we created this life. And I love hearing everybody's story.
All right, thank you, Stacy. And that's always an interesting conversation to have, right? The difference between race and culture, and race and ethnicity, and where particularly in a lot of cultures where there is a lot of diversity of race, of color, of tone. How do you navigate that when you come to this country where it is very Black or white a lot of times? And I know, Brianna, this is something that you've also navigated.
Yeah.
So if you want to share your story and your path.
Yeah, I think, can everyone hear me?
Mhm.
Buddy, I'm Brianna Johnston, and I'm happy to go after both Stacey and Naomi because I have a bit of both of their stories within my own. So Naomi mentioned being biracial. I am also biracial. My father is white, and my mother is African American. And so I did grow up with the sense that Vanessa mentioned, like this sort of otherness that you feel. Oh, I'm sorry, that was Priscilla. Priscilla mentioned an otherness in certain spaces. And I often felt that growing up, but I have a very unconventional way that I got into architecture. I originally started with construction and then interior design. And so I didn't actually have to go through like the guidance counselor to figure out what I wanted to be. I just kind of happened upon architecture. And so I was an adult at that time, and I found this like weird niche of people that were eccentric and smart and challenged me. But I did have lots of women mentors. And then through architecture, I found the ability to volunteer through AIA and other means like Black Architects in the Making, to where where I had women who empowered me, I can also be that to other people. I have been an aunt and siblings, and everyone has babies. I'm the one that chose to go to school. But so for me, that has always been about empowering younger children to, like Vanessa said, if you can see it, you can be it. My aunt was an architect growing up, and I didn't have any idea what she did. I just knew she was my cool aunt, and I liked being around her. But as I got older, she also encouraged me to pursue this career and gave me lots of encouragement and empowered me to be the strong person that I am. And through this career, I have found friends like Vanessa, Naomi, Priscilla, Lourdes, and all of these people who continue to guide me so that I can be my best self in the architectural community and be an example for others. I know sometimes like we all fall short, or like Stacey said, there's lots of hard knocks and learning, but my hope with this is that I can always be an example for other young women who may have the guidance counselors telling them like, no, women don't pursue that. Or they might say, well, you don't look like us in this space, because my hair is back today, but usually I have huge hair and I wear it proudly. And if we go to AIA events, I usually try to wear color, like not a color, I wear color only. And I like to be bright and be myself. And so that's
Thank you for sharing. And Rachel, can you share your story?
Sure. Thank you for having me. So I came to architecture through my mom. She raised me and my 3 siblings by herself. And she settled into a really great career as a disability insurance executive, but she always told me that she wanted to be an architect. And so when I showed an interest in design, she mentioned that she had attended an architecture camp at Harvard. She's originally from Philadelphia, and she lived up in New York and Philadelphia area. And I did as well when I was young. So we actually moved to South Florida when I was about 6. And so I looked for architecture programs when I was in high school and found a summer program at So I joined, I attended an architecture summer camp. Sounds really nerdy, but I had such a great time, made some really great friendships, but also just fell in love with architecture and also with the School of Architecture. So I almost applied only to when I was applying to colleges, and my mom said maybe like 1 or 2 more. So I applied to other schools, but thankfully got into and that's where I did my Bachelor's of Architecture. I graduated during the recession, the Great Recession. So I was struggling to find a job. I was so excited about the opportunities that would be available, but there were very few, and there were a lot of students. So I actually moved to New York, lived with my grandparents in Queens, deferred my student loans, and tried to find work. I worked for a time for an interior designer. But gratefully got a job recommendation for a construction, basically a construction manager for the VA, for the government, and that was stationed at James A. Haley in Tampa. So I moved to Tampa. I never been there before, didn't know anyone here. and started working, and it was great. The addition was a hospital addition, so the hospital was active, occupied, and it was designed by HDR. And I learned from their design work. I learned from their interior design team. I learned how to interface with contractors, you know, the importance of specs and CDs and clean drawings and how to make the call in the field and all that. And then I was also doing my, I think it's called ADP or IDP at the time, where you document your hours. And I could only document so many under an engineer. So I quit, I quit that job and found Studio Plus. And I've been with them for 10 years now, it'll be in March. And during that time, I started taking tests. I started testing in 2013 and failed. And then I took a break, passed my first test in 2015 and failed some more and passed another one, failed some more. But in that time I got engaged, married. I had my first child in 2020. And then I passed my last 2 exams in 21 back to back. So yeah, so I'm just, you know, still hard to believe that I'm licensed. I've failed many exams. So just also know too that just because you fail an exam, I've heard people from Kobe Bryant to, you know, Will Smith say that you're only failing if you don't go back and take that test again. You know, just, you know, keep showing up and, you know, keep working hard, keep track of what you didn't get right the first time, and you'll get it the second time, and you'll still have what you got from, you know, what you passed on your last test. So just don't give up on yourself. And so now I'm, you know, licensed and trying to figure out how I want to, you know, reignite some of my passion for design. So looking forward to doing that. And also, when I got to college, I was a counselor at the summer camp that I attended in high school. So I missed that. I want to get back to being, you know, representation for other young kids, especially kids of color and women, of girls of color, to pursue this industry. And I enjoy, you know, seeing children learn architecture and design. So trying to get back into that also is a goal of mine.
Sounds like a BAM needs to go to Tampa now so that Rachel can lead BAM to Tampa.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, loop me in.
So actually, one of the things that we've talked about is this idea that, you know, you're in high school or you're like 5 years old and you choose architecture and you go to architecture school and directly out of high school and you graduate with your degree and get your first architecture job and get licensed, and it's like a linear path. And Rachel, your path is the most linear maybe out of all of us here, and it's still not that linear. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you know, between recessions and exam failures and, you know, wait a minute, I want to have kids. You know, there's so many things that you have to navigate and persevere through, and, you know, keep focused on the things you want. You know, even though I knew I wanted to get married, I wanted to have kids, I knew I wanted to get licensed. Like that was a not negotiable. So I just kept pushing. And I'll tell you what, kids is a motivation. I was like, I don't want to be taking exams when my kid's learning to walk and crawl and stuff. So I was just like, let me get done with this. I actually did attend a boot camp, the ARE Young Architects Boot Camp. So I would recommend that if have a few exams left and you're struggling a little bit to stay focused while working and studying. It's a good way to stay focused on that.
All right, Naomi's joined us via her phone, so hopefully she has a better connection because she has a very non-linear story that also involves kids to share. Naomi, you with us?
Yes, very, very unlinear, different but similar to Rachel. Rachel, you give me encouragement because with the license exam, you know, passing. So congratulations on that. I left UM in 1999, and when I say left, I did not actually graduate because I was pregnant. And I did not give up on architecture. I found a job, and I'm still at that job 24 years later. So that to me is a part of my own success there. And having a child really does motivate you to just keep going. Getting up every single day and making sure you're providing for them and yourself. When I started taking my exams in 2021, yeah, I took 4 in 4 months. I passed them. I was very cocky. I was like, oh, this is great. And then 2 months later, I took another one and I failed. And then I failed again. And I can't keep up track of how many times I failed. And it is very discouraging. So the fact that you have community around you that are going through the same exact things is very, very helpful to you. So I like that about Rachel's story and everybody else's story on here of the different ways we go. Becoming licensed was very important to me because of the stuff that I was doing in the community, and being part of Black Architects in the Making and going around to these communities and talking to them about the importance of making this number higher. And I myself was not really contributing to that number because I hadn't been licensed, and that to me was a huge motivation to start. Of course, I also had Lourdes as a boss, and she was very much, always encouraging us to start taking our licensure, and of course, Craig also. So that's my journey to where I am now here. But hopefully this year, I'll be Madame Architect.
Yeah, and that speaks a lot too to the importance of planning. It's something I think Stacy you brought up was the fact that 76% of architects don't have a business plan.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So what are your plans? So I ask this of everyone and anyone can jump in. What are your plans, and how does having a plan, having a personal plan or a business plan, how has that kind of motivated, pushed you, and gotten you to the next step?
May I say something? This is Nadine Levy. I joined late. I'm sorry. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I just want to encourage you guys to keep pushing. I'm a lot further down the journey than you guys seem to be. I'm a 95 UF graduate in architecture. Went on to get my master's at Georgia Tech in actually 93 at UF, 95 at Georgia Tech, licensure at 99, and I've been working and then owning my own business in Atlanta for about 13 years before I returned to South Florida. And as a proud Black architect, I remember when there were only about 250 of us. I remember when there was 99 of us. And for the motivation for me was when I actually worked with a few of the early Black architects. I worked with one called Hermine. Can't remember. It was here in South Florida when I was young. I was still an intern. And just the fact that they were out there motivated me to make the plan, to stick to the plan. And what I did was I made sure that, number one, I did my IDP quickly. I did the 3 years, documented all my credits, and did that, got all that signed off. And that's huge. And making sure you track, because as a young intern, it's hard to get the project management, the construction management, the construction administration hours. And so you have to be assertive with your supervisors to make sure they position you on projects that allow you to earn those credits, number one. So that's part of the plan. And then making sure that you have a window for your success. Now that you've gotten your IDP, when do you anticipate passing the exam? What I did is when I went to take my exams, I scheduled them one a week because it forced me then to take the time off that I needed from work, take the time to study because I didn't want to pay for this again. And that was my personal motivation. Praise God, I got it all in one sitting. I passed everything one time, the first time, and I went ahead and got licensed. It surprised my boss because he didn't do it. He didn't do that. So I got a little financial incentive when I did it. So that motivated me even more. So just want to encourage you guys that it's possible. It's good to see the numbers of Black architects growing. A few years back, about 10 years back, during my business, when I had my own business, I had to share with my clients and some of my consultants that the dismal 0.1% African American female architect number, and a lot of them were in disbelief, but I had to do that all the time. So it's encouraging to hear you ladies motivated, achieving that goal, getting that licensing. As a business owner, your firms want you to have that license because then they can market you more. The more registered architect, the better they sit in the evaluation committees, the more they can assign bigger and better work. So that's the argument you use to encourage them to give you the time to get your licensing and be assertive about your career path plan. That's all I just wanted to add and to encourage you guys with.
Thank you, Nadine.
Thank you.
I think I'm kind of similar to Stacey. Like, if you tell me I can't do something, there's something that clicks inside of me and I really want to do that thing. So, so I think, like Nadine is mentioning, it's hard psychologically when you fail some of these tests over and over and over again and you don't know what you're quite doing. But I know Naomi, I don't know how else to say this, but I forgot I had a test once upon a time. And then that's when I finally passed it, because I wasn't in the state of panic or, expectations. I knew that I'd had the test. I prepared myself up into it, but I think it was like a Saturday or something. And so the Friday night I went out with friends and was having a great time. I had a great time. And I took my test on Saturday and I passed because I was in a state of just, happiness and my normal state rather than a state of like anxiety over the test. So hopefully that helps a little, but Vanessa mentioned personal goals. So I'm similar to Rachel in the sense that I'm getting married later this year, and I'm using that as a goal to try and become licensed before. My fiance has all of his tests done, but not the hours. I have all of my hours, but not the tests. So I'm wanting to beat him really badly.
That's good.
Hopefully
motivation,
I can do that this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats. I have to say, for those licensees, and I'm not the moderator, but Vanessa had some technical difficulties and she's back. I had to take structures 4 times. And back in the day, they gave you a grade. Today's pass and fail. So I had a 74, a 73, a 72. Finally, I said, I'm not studying. And I passed it because all I needed was a 75. So I didn't care. So it can be done, ladies.
Lourdes, to your point.
So again, these are our personal stuff. It's not to say that you're supposed to go and do all of this because, as to Lourdes's point, I didn't study for some of my exams and I passed them. And the one that I really, really studied for, I didn't. And that was what was discouraging. So it's about owning everything that you do and making sure that you're just, you don't stress it's hard to say don't stress yourself out, but you're right, Brianna, about, going in there with a little bit less anxiety, and maybe it will help you, do better at that specific exam. But there's so much against us, I tell a story that when my son was 9, this was such a long time ago, and his friend who was like 7 asked me what I did. And I said, I'm an architect. I mean, not to get into the nuances of, if you consider it or not. And he said, what do you think you are, a man? And my son walked up and was like, look, I'm going to leave you alone with my mom on that one because you're going to get schooled. But even at that age, they think of this as a male field at 7 years old.
No, it's true, and it's so prolific and so predominant. I have done presentations on how designing from the male perspective and the profession being so male, how it affects our built environment, and so much so that even the prevalence of street harassment has made it into Lego construction sets where they have little stickers that say, "Hey, baby," and for the Lego construction workers, and it's just, these are children's toys, and what are we teaching children at such a young age, right? And so us talking, convening in these ways isn't just to hear ourselves talk, but to elevate voices of those who are not. We'll make our own Lego construction toys.
Well, to be fair, 1 year for Christmas, I got an Easy Bake Oven. And my brother got Legos. And when he opened his Legos, he seemed disappointed. So I took the Legos. And every Saturday after I did my chores, I don't know if you all know about having responsibilities to do chores, but every Saturday after I did chores, in the dining room that had plastic on the furniture, which no one could go in, my grandmother would allow me to redo my Legos every week. And all week, as I walked past the dining room, I would see last week's invention, thinking of what am I going to design the following week. So Legos, I think, had a great influence on my wanting to be an architect and put these things together. I do agree that the way that they're marketed seems to be kind of one-sided, but Legos by far has really helped me.
And that's recent. That's more recently and currently, because the original Legos came with a little thing that said Legos are for all, and then they weren't gendered. So that's now that we've changed Legos to be gendered, which is really, really silly. But other than Legos, we were talking about passing in the exams, which is a really, really stressful time. And I think I would just like to underscore what everyone has said. Just keep going. Stay the course. Stick to your plan. A lot of times you might feel discouraged, but at the end of the day, no one's going to ask you how many times you had to take the exams. You are just going to have those initials after your name. You are going to have that license, and that's what matters. So many of us have been through it. So many of us have been through it, I'm sure more than you. And it's not because we're not smart or capable or good architects or good designers or good project managers. It's because the exams are hard. It's not you, it's the exams. So just keep that in mind.
To add to that, it's to find your community, because talking about being encouraged. So, a colleague of mine, he's younger than me, by a lot. He passed his exam yesterday after a lot of fails. And I was so happy for him. And that also has encouraged me to kind of push on through. And it's amazing when you have that community that are always surrounding you with encouragement, or you can vent, or you can feel sad, or all of those things. It's all so great to have that. So I encourage each and every one of you, exams or not, to still have that community of people, your village. Vanessa and Lourdes and Brianna are my village, and obviously others on the call.
One of the things, this is Nadine again. One of the things that I found helped me when I was studying for my exams is back in ancient days, I still had access to the old non-computer exam format. And the thing that helped me the most was not was in that old exam format, they told you the goal that they were looking for the skill set they were testing for. So that helped me study. So it wasn't just a vast amount of information I had to know that was overwhelming, but by understanding the goal of what they really were testing my knowledge of, I could better hone, could I communicate that I knew this information? I understood the key principles of this data set, or structures or site planning. Could I communicate that efficiently, simply? I don't have to be the greatest designer in the world, and expeditiously, because it is a timed exam. And once I understood that, that freed me in my studies, and it released the stress. I don't know if those resources are how the new formatting has changed, or if those past exam information still provides that. But for me, I know knowing that was important. They weren't testing me on all my knowledge about site planning. No, they were testing me on key principles of site planning. So if I understood that and could communicate that, I would pass.
That's a very good point and very good pro tip for current exam takers. And those of you who have, I took 4.0, so it's been a little different, or now that we're in 5.0. And I know now they have a sample exam that is NCAR provided rather than, a third party. Those who are current or recent test takers want to share any pro tips on study materials, resources, best study practices.
I would say, I agree with Nadine. I had a copy of the old exams, so I took the 12th part. So I don't know about 4.0 and 5.0 and all of that, but I took the 12th part, and to Lourdes's point, when you got a score and you needed a 75 to pass and you got a 74 and you're like, oh my gosh. And so I ended up getting copies of tests. That helped tremendously when you understand the goal. I don't have to have the best site plan. I don't have to have all of the niceties. I just need to accomplish the goal. I need to make sure I have the design aspects correct. And then the other thing that we did as a chapter, which I don't know how well it panned out because people moved after the hurricanes, but we took those examples of old exams that we had and we created a library set so that everybody else and we started study groups, and we paid for one set of study materials for the entire group. And then the group, I don't know how they shared it, but our chapter paid for one set of study guides. And so I think that wherever you can share and study with someone, however much information you have from past examples, that would be really helpful. Yeah, to not get into the weeds. And the one exam that I had the hardest time on, mechanical, I have engineers. That's my
exactly. You just need to know enough to get through the exam, and after that, delegate it to your engineers.
Yeah. All right. There have been a lot of great comments in the chat. People talking about their endless testing journey. So it's not just us. You are not alone. People talking about some of the best study techniques and materials. And the exams do change frequently. Ultimately, F equals MA, so structures is going to be structures. You have your BTUs or BTUs, so there's a lot of similar material, but the format, the resources, they do change. So make sure you're staying up to date with NCARB and the opportunities that they provide, because they did change the way they score report. Like they didn't give me scores. They just said pass, fail, and nothing else. And I know they've changed some things now. So definitely check out the chat, check out some of the suggestions, resources, and stories in the chat. And with that, I'm going to open it up to questions from anyone else in the audience. Feel free to unmute yourself, turn on your video. Or we can just keep talking too. I think Naomi was about to say something as well.
No, I was just saying that I mean, this is great. You did ask a question about a business plan. I don't have a business plan, so to speak, but I would love to take all of the community stuff that we do and make it into one business, right? But I'd be interested to hear what the other ladies had, because we're all from different walks. We have a student, we have, Stacy, who has her own business. Of course, we have Rachel and Brianna. So, are you all wanting to own your own company?
I would say for me, this is Rachel. I never saw myself owning my own company, but
The
things
minute,
change. You never know. I'm sure Stacy's an inspiration.
the minute I heard your story, I
This
saw
is everybody's inspiration.
But I do think, I mean, I would love to hear what Stacy's approach to a business plan is. I think I'm not super familiar with developing one, but I know one of the big points is identifying a unique selling proposition. So like what makes you different and unique in your industry. So I think that would be something I could do, but I don't know much about the financial aspects and other sides of a business
A
plan.
lot of the portions of a business plan you can learn, right? That's not the challenge. The real key is how are you going to take your skill set and what you love and make a career that you enjoy and make money. I don't know about this whole architects of poor business thing, and there are so many ways you can make money. You can have residual income. You can have passive income as an architect. You could be an Amazon associate selling solar products as an architect. I mean, there are so many things that you could do to make money and to have a business plan. So for example, if you said, I don't know, any example of what do you love, Rachel? Tell me what you love. What's your favorite? Yes.
What's my favorite thing?
Really
I love trying new foods and going to unique restaurants.
new foods and unique restaurants. We can combine that with architecture. Piece of cake. Easy. So there's restaurant design, right? There is holistic foods as an industry. There is the facilities it takes to farm and produce holistic foods. There is off the grid for foods. There is aquaponics for architecture as food. There's, of course, there's 100 million different types of restaurants, the whole bunch of different types of cultures. You can find a niche of what Rachel wants. We could develop a plan on what Rachel wants and how we can create different revenue streams based on what Rachel wants. And some parts of that may be design, some parts of that may be construction. It's like a financial portfolio. You need a mix. You don't want just all stocks. You don't want all mutual funds. You need a mix. This is me talking. This is just me, hard knocks. We don't do linear. We don't do linear. We as women, I don't know if I understand linear because my brain is like this. My brain doesn't go like this. And therefore I can't have a job that goes like this because my brain is going like this, And so just feeding all of that, there's nothing that says we have to go to school, we have to work in an architect's office, in the blueprint room. Y'all don't even have a blueprint room anymore. Or I could just do details for 10 years, and then I'm gonna go on a job site for 10 more years, and then I could take an exam, and then I can be an intern, and then I can own my own office and I'm 70 years old. No, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. That's the linear path. We can create a business plan right now, 21st century, to get us started. I'm done.
And I think I just found Stacy's new job, business consultant.
We all need a Stacy.
And I already have a plan for her. She just doesn't know what that plan is yet. I'll let her know soon.
Let me know.
Oh, boy.
But we
Right.
box ourselves in, and we think that once we fail, I can't tell you how important it is to fail and fail repeatedly and get used to failing. If you're not used to failing, you ain't moving no place. If you cry every time you fail, and you got to get used to crying and got to get used to stop. You have to fail. You have to have bruises on your knees. You have to get up and brush them off. You have to suck your your pride sometimes. You got to go in the bathroom, cry, wash your face, and come back out like a soldier. You have to be able to fail repeatedly and often. That's how we learn.
Absolutely. Any
To
last
that,
questions? Go
I was
ahead,
going
Leah.
to, I was just going to add to Stacey, like, I think during the pandemic, I was feeling a bit unsure about my career and what value did I bring to architecture, like Stacey said. And I found a few really interesting, like motivational speakers. But what I realized from them, you know, obviously there were women encouraging women in business, but a lot of times what they'd say is like, I don't know how the statistics work, but most men will go after a job that they're not qualified for, like easily. And so it really encouraged me to start encouraging my friends, like, hey, let's go after these things we want. And let's start talking with the men about like what they're asking for and what we should be asking for, because we're comparable, right? Like we're in the same league, but we're just women versus men, but we're doing the same work. And so through that period, I was able to do art residencies, art installations, things that I never thought I could do, or I never thought I was qualified for, because I would sign up for them. And then I would get admitted, and then I would learn a new skill, and I would apply that to my architectural career. So yeah, just don't be afraid of applying to something new and trying something new. Like Stacey said, we're not linear people.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Being
And
yourself
that's
through it all.
accurate. Like women wait until they feel 100% qualified for the thing. Men do not. So do not wait. Right. And we have a question from Gloria.
Not a question, just a comment. Hi, Rachel.
Hi,
Oh my
Gloria.
God. So nice to see you. We used to work together. I just want to say something real quick about the exams. One, I put it in the chat, but in case you're not paying attention to it, not everybody is a good exam taker. And that's one thing that I've learned with so many of the people. I took the ARE bootcamp that Rachel mentioned before as well. And there's a lot of people that are very knowledgeable, that they really know their stuff, but they're just not good exam takers. And the fact that some people will fail exams, and Rachel is a great example of that. She had tons of experience, and she mentioned she failed some exams. That didn't mean she didn't know her stuff. And like a lot of us go through that too. It's like, it doesn't mean that you don't know, that you're not good at it. And then besides that, the other point I want to kind of make sure people kind of think about is, we don't need to be great at everything with these exams. We are supposed to know the minimum that they required. And as human beings that we all are, sorry, my words are blah. We tend to be really good at something and not so good at other stuff, and that's okay. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because sometimes some of the exams tend to be really easy for some of us, and then some of the others are really, really hard. In that bootcamp, for example, because I've got to meet so many people that were taking the exams at the same time that I realized that some of the topics in the exams that were super easy for me were really hard for other people. And the ones that are super hard for me were really easy for some other people. We're not the same. And that's the beauty of this career. Like, we are supposed to complement each other in architecture. And don't get discouraged because you're failing an exam and because you're not understanding this one topic. Like, try to do your best with that one thing, as everybody's mentioning here. Go back and make sure you understand that, you learn it. But don't get discouraged, because we don't need to be perfect at everything. We need to find our niche, like Stacey's saying, and be really great at that. And then the other things, we might, if at some point we either are in a big, great company, we will have other people doing those stuff that we're not so great at. Or if we have a business, we will delegate those stuff. So it's just kind of like a point of remembering, don't put so much pressure on yourself, because there's things that you're going to be really, really good and things that you're not, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. And with that, we're actually at time. So I'm going to turn it over to Lourdes for a shameless plug for our next session.
Well,
So thank you to all our panelists.
No, thank you. Thank you for all the attendees. I think we made it all the way up to 54. Becky can confirm. I think that's the largest number we've ever had. So thank you very much, Vanessa, for moderating. Thank you, Stacy and Rachel and Naomi and Priscilla and Brianna, who had to leave, for sharing your stories. There are so many stories. It's so encouraging. And probably one of the oldest on this panel being me, the numbers were very, very low. So I have always felt that that this is how we need to help the next generation. And it saddens me to hear some of your stories of recent people. I thought that would already be gone. So the job is not completed. We need to be the stories of the 50%. Because that is the ratio of, actually we're more than 50% female in the US Census. And so that, you know, this continuing to stay. Shameless plug, we'll have our next one March 29th, I think is what it was, which will be all of our components and chapters. And if you're a woman president of your local chapter, don't worry, we'll be calling you soon because you will be the presenter. So I look forward to seeing all of you, and obviously the Miami A Shameless plug, our seminar summit that we will have in June. Yes, we know it's hot in Miami, but you know, we'll be in an air-conditioned hotel. So that'll be fine. And I hope to see all of you next month. And if you'd like to join us in the committee or have ideas, send them Becky or my ways, and we will continue to hopefully bring really good, valuable sessions for you. And I already have a few ideas. Tacey's on my list, and Beverly, and some of you just are going to say no without knowing what, let's say yes without knowing what you're saying yes to, and that's what I like. So thank you all very much, and see you all in a month. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.